Hey, FlashPoint Army, are you looking for truth and news all in the spirit of faith? Well, don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay connected. Not a part of the FlashPoint Army? Sign up for the latest email updates at govictory.com/FP signup and join us as we stand for truth and freedom. Tucker Carlson, I'm going to play a part of a clip where he's being interviewed by that bastion of right reporting, Russell Brand. What else are you lying about? Watch.
You know it's infected when it hurts. You press it. You recoil. They immediately recoiled when you asked any questions about January 6th. And that was a tip-off to me. I mean, I had no thought in my head as I watched this happen on television and in the subsequent weeks that U.S. law enforcement or military agencies had anything to do with it. That never crossed my mind. I never thought that it was a false flag or anything like that. I'm not a conspiracist by temperament. I never thought that. And then I interviewed the chief of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, in an interview that was never aired on Fox, by the way. I was fired before it could air. I'm going to interview him again. But Stephen Sund was the totally non-political, worked for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this was not some right-wing activist. He was the chief of the Capitol Police on January 6th. And he said, yeah. That crowd was filled with federal agents. What? Yes. Well, he would know, of course, because he was in charge of security at the site. So the more time has passed, now it's been 2.5 years, it becomes really obvious that core claims they made about January 6th were lies. And my view about events and about people is if you catch someone telling a lie about one thing, the first question you have is, what else are you lying about?
It's so good, Lance. You know, that last comment is really the whole point of what I wanted you to see. Because, you know, when you find somebody, you catch somebody in a lie, your first thought is exactly what he said. What else are you lying to me about? The White House has got a problem. And the DOJ's got a problem. The FBI's got a problem. The Democrat Party's got a problem. The Republican Party's got a problem. They're lying. And when you lie, you're hesitant to believe anything is truth anymore.
But this is why I really believe revival and awakening started, Gene. I'm serious about this. You know, can be as neurotic as anyone else and have to get my faith back up there when I look at the news cycle because I immerse myself in this as you do. But I'm seeing something change. There's a collective awareness of the lying. You see, a lot of Americans have been giving hope and shrugging their shoulders and hoping that maybe there's a mistake because we have been intentionally deceived all along, and America's waking up to it, and it's going to feed into this great awakening moment. So, for instance, the January 6th hearings, we now realize was complete manipulated theater, and we know it because what the chief of police said to Tucker in that interview wasn't it strange that they never called me up there? After all, I am the chief of the Capitol Police. They got unionized guys that are on Pelosi's payroll to come in and talk. Why wouldn't they get the chief of police in charge? Because I'll tell you what happened. There was political manipulation days ahead of that to set this incident up, and the place was swarming with feds. They didn't want me in there giving those answers.
And just to put this in historical context real quick, you and I were with Eric Metaxas a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about comparisons to 1930s Germany. I don't mean to be repetitive from previous programs, but we have to remember the Rostock fire of 1933. That was the German plan, the Nazi plan. They used that. They used lies about it to get rid of political opposition, and that's ultimately what led to the enabling acts that allowed them to get rid of free speech and all of those things. Here's the difference today in 1930s Germany. They tried the same thing. Think of some of the bills they tried to pass in 2021. Now Lance is 100% right. The lies have finally weighed enough on the American people. They're no longer going to sit back. Remember what the Declaration says. We just celebrated it last week. We know that history tells us men will suffer evils while they are sufferable. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing inevitably the same object, evinces a design to put them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off those forms of government. Now, we're not going to abolish it, but we are going to alter it, and that's what the American people are standing up and doing now. They're saying, we're going to fix this, we're going to get back to federalism. They're awake. I couldn't agree more with what Lance said.
Yeah, amen. All right, Lance, I think you had a follow-up to that?
Yeah, just to follow up on this, just because it's got me stoked up, what Rick's saying is, let's just remember, we have to remind ourselves of this. The FBI, we had 20 whistleblowers that went up and basically lost their jobs, exposing corruption, and the media isn't saying anything. If programs like this do not sound an alarm, these stories get lost. 20 of these men risked their careers, lost their careers as whistleblowers, and here's what they said. We were following drug cartel cases. We were following serious terrorism infrastructure invasion. We were told, stop and begin looking for white supremacist militia activity. The narrative they want, the Reichstag fire they want, is somehow that they can pin upon frustrated conservative Trump supporters that they're a dangerous, anti-democracy, violent minority. And so the FBI said, but there's no evidence of that. They started to incentivize them to find some evidence so they could start saying, remember the goofball statements that would come out by these leaders? The number one threat in the United States is the danger of white supremacy and terrorism. No fact in it whatsoever, but that's the narrative in order to kill their political opposition.
Right. Lies, lies, and more lies. It's kind of a running theme tonight. Speaking of lies, let me go to this next because I need to move along here. Look at what Charlie Kirk, our good friend, said. 350,000 unaccompanied minors have already come across Joe Biden's open border since 2021. 85,000 plus of those have gone missing, according to DHS. Tens of thousands more have fallen victim to massive child smuggling, child labor operations, and it's crickets from the media. And yet, Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard make one movie about child sex trafficking, and the legacy media complex goes into overdrive to discredit Sound of Freedom, QAnon adjacent. Are you paying attention yet? Now, to me, this is very straightforward. And Jesse, I'm going to go to you first out of this. The reality is, anyone that saw that film, there's not one statement about, there's nothing QAnon in that film. There's nothing. And the reality is there's some QAnon things that we thought were crazy a couple years ago have come to be true. That's not the point. Yet look at the mass media. They're not even smart at this, Jesse. They're all throwing in behind this to come against a film that does nothing but save children. Why in the world wouldn't you want to save children?
Well, it's amazing because they're losing power. This film showed them that their power is not what they think it is. But there's a scripture in the Bible about all these liars, that all liars shall have their part in a lake of fire. There are going to be a lot of government people in hell for eternity. Now, I'm not just saying that to get somebody's reaction. That's the word of the living God. But when that movie made more than Indiana Jones, see that they got a slap in the face and they didn't like that. And yet anybody ought to be for stopping child smuggling and all kinds of different things. But see, people don't care when they're consumed by money and they're consumed by power. You see what I'm saying? But you must be superior to power instead of driven by it. And what is happening in this society today, everybody's driven by power instead of being superior to it. So it doesn't make no difference what they say. God is going to have his way. Now, you know what I'm tired of, and I say this to Republicans and Democrats, I'm tired of allegations. You know, people, allegations, always saying that we investigate. Show me some evidence. Get me some stuff. Go in there and do what you got to do to get those papers, to get those documents, to do what you need to do, whether it's on the media side or whether it's on our government side, see, because that's how they keep it stirred up, allegations, and nobody ever gets, no responsibility is given to anyone as long as it's allegations. We have to get firm. We have to get hard. We have to get street smart and say, give me these things at such and such a date or else, because everybody's bought and paid for. Now, when you say or else, they're going to read into that. What can that be? Let me tell you what the government hates more than any word in the vocabulary of English language. No. When you tell the government no, you shake them to your shoes. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to tell our government no. And tell the media that's not doing what they're supposed to do, no. Instead of just one like Fox or somebody over here doing whatever they do, it's time to just stand up. And, you know, the way to do that is to get in the streets. You can say what you want, man. You get in the streets. What moved the civil rights movement to where it changed America, and that's Martin Luther King, because they got in the streets. And when you get in the streets, that makes people nervous. And you got to be willing to take whatever you got to do what you got to do and get this thing done. And that's how you'll change this nation.
I'm talking about maybe we should be looking at all of those guardians of the galaxy in the print media who are criticizing this exposure and wonder if their senior leadership or higher are part of the pedophile network that they're denying exists. And I say that because Rolling Stone, Washington Post, CNN, why would you mock something that is actually worthy of your consideration? Why would you diminish it? By the way, the Department of Justice, here's an expose, breaking news. The Department of Justice scrubbed references to the categories of sex trafficking in minors, child victims of prostitution, and cross-border transportation of children. They scrubbed those categories in May in anticipation of more exposure. You know why? Because Americans are going to start to put together the fact that the open border is providing 85,000 children to a network of willing elites who are part of the problem.
That's so true. You're absolutely breaking, the Biden DOJ announces charges against Gal Luft, a think tank official who provided the FBI with info on the Biden's family dealings with China back in 2019. Now, you're saying, who is Dr. Gal Luft? I want you to watch just a little piece of this 14-minute video. It's just minute 52. Give you some background who Gal Luft really is. Watch.
Good day. My name is Dr. Gal Luft. For the past 20 years, I have been the co-director of the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, a Washington-based think tank focused on energy security. For the past 15 years, I've been a resident of Israel. And for 4 years, I was senior advisor to the China energy company CFC, at the same time of its dealings with the Biden family. Under normal circumstances, I would be testifying before Congress about my experience with CFC. Sadly, due to circumstances I shall describe here in this video, I am forced to tell you this story via video. My ordeal goes back to a fatal decision I made in March of 2019 to share with the US government my knowledge about the Biden family's relations with CFC. As I said, it was in March of 2019 in a 2-day session at the US Embassy in Brussels. I insisted that the meeting take place in March because at the time there were rumors that Joe Biden was planning to run for president. I saw it as my civic duty to alert the government beforehand and give it enough time to probe the issue. I want to be clear. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China.
All right, this time with China, let me bring in from the great state of Colorado, our friend, Representative Lauren Boebert. Congresswoman, let me get your take on this. Now, everybody says this guy's missing. We see the video. He's obviously concerned for his very life right now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in hiding. What should we take from all of this?
This is really shameful that someone actually came forward to share their knowledge of what's going on within the dealings of the federal government and the corruption that he was witnessing firsthand. We have whistleblower protections, and Gal Luft was indicted by Merrick Garland's DOJ just this week. And this is, of course, after he released this video, this statement a few months ago saying that he provided the FBI with evidence of corruption involving the Biden crime family in 2019. The DOJ alleges Luft received payment from the Chinese energy firm CFC, who also conveniently had a deal with Hunter Biden, and also claims that Luft was an unlicensed arms dealer. Both claims Luft has denied. But Luft has gone on to say that he's innocent and that all these charges are being brought against him to protect Hunter, his Uncle Jim, and even Trader Joe. And the American people are sick and tired of Biden's double standard and his agency, his minions, covering up for the Bidens while simultaneously indicting conservatives. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice and Christopher Wray's FBI are taxpayer-funded agencies working for the Biden campaign.
So, Congresswoman, when you see all of this happening, first off, thank you for serving not just your state, but the nation there in corrupt D.C. But when we see this, it seems to me they're wanting to throw these charges at him because if he's under investigation or he's got some charges, then he's not. They can't interview him and get any information. Is that correct?
They're always looking to that excuse of having an investigation and not being able to pursue something. Now, everything that we're seeing come out with the Biden crime family, I mean, this has all been taking place for years, and a lot of it is even past the statute of limitations. And the way that we're seeing this in the Oversight Committee is that this is not a bug in the system, it's a feature in the system, that the FBI, the DOJ did not want to go after the Bidens all these years, even though they had this information. And now we have Gal Luft coming out and admitting to this. We don't know where he is now, but still there is no action that is being taken. I mean, even if you look at just what happened with David Weiss and Attorney General Merrick Garland, he gave Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal that no other American would have ever received. So this is not just a bug or a glitch in the system. This is an absolute feature.
Boy, it sure is. And let me go to you, Rick. You hear all this. This is what makes America really frustrated because they see a guy that came out March of 2019 and it was buried. This thing was buried and now he's fearing for his life. We don't know where he is, and thank God he's somewhere safe. But Rick, this is another bad litmus test of where the nation is when it comes to, like Lauren Boebert was saying, with the DOJ, everybody we're working with seems to be on the take.
Yeah, we're fortunate, Gene, that we've got enough of a history and enough of a foundation of what justice really is, biblical justice, honest weights and measures, treating everybody the same, that people know in their gut this is wrong. They know in their gut that it's wrong, not even to be able to hear from this guy, right? I mean, that's the whole reason in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, we have the right to confront witnesses, to call witnesses in our favor, get it all out there and let us see who's believable. I love that you played the clip because we can see that this guy, at least it appears to me, is believable. I'd love to see him cross-examined and all that good stuff. But even if he did everything the DOJ says he did, well, then what's he doing in business with the Biden family? And what does that say about the Biden family and the type of people they did business with? If he did all the arms transactions, well, Hunter Biden's already known for that, some illegal guns and that sort of thing. We already know that they've been on the take for these other issues, let alone what this guy is saying. So I just think people know in their gut we're not getting justice. We're not getting blind justice. We're not getting equal justice. And thankfully, we've got a House committee right now that Lauren's on and with these other good folks in the House that is investigating these things and hopefully getting to the bottom of it, hopefully be able to call these folks if the DOJ will get out of the way. Last thing, this whole idea of silencing the opposition by filing charges against them. I've never been for gag orders and for these judges that'll silence the defendant or if you're the one bringing a claim against someone, you should be able to go out and have your freedom of speech and freedom of the press to talk about these things and let the American people know about it even while the trial is happening. They always hide behind that and claim you won't get a fair trial and all that nonsense. That's what they're doing to silence people. Exactly as Lauren said, this is a feature for them. It's not a bug, and we've got to stop it. Like Jesse said earlier, we need to be standing up and saying, not on my watch, or we're going to lose our justice system in America.
It's really accurate there. In fact, Senator Ron Johnson talked about this very thing about the whistleblowers. Watch.
How are we ever going to get to the bottom of all of this if the people who are abusing power are still in power? It's the same with the Russia collusion story. All of those people who pushed Russia collusion aggressively are now, many of them are actually in Biden's cabinet. Look at Jake Sullivan. He was the one pushing the story for Hillary Clinton. So what are we going to do, and what can you do as an elected official to ensure that this corruption is exposed?
Well, we have to keep exposing the truth. We need more whistleblowers coming forward. But they've done a really good job of setting up their procedures in the FBI, in the Department of Justice, to insulate themselves from scrutiny. I mean, look at the letters that David Weiss sent to Jim Jordan in June 7th, June 30th. You know, basically giving Jim Jordan the middle finger. You know, you can't investigate us because we have an active investigation. That's what they always use as the excuse. So they've insulated themselves from scrutiny. It's very difficult.
Very difficult, Lance. I'm watching that clip and I'm thinking, I wonder how long Maria Bartiromo is going to be there. Anyway, comment, Lance, on what you saw with Senator Ron Johnson.
Yeah, and in the long-form interview there, Gene, with Dr. Luft, he brings up a question, and I think that the Republicans committees need to look into this. He said that entire two-day meeting in Brussels was recorded. They have a deposition. They have the data. He said at no point did the FBI in the United States want to follow up on it, but the information's all there. So his deposition is there. It needs to be looked at. It will corroborate the corruption investigation that is going on regarding China and the Bidens. But, remember Bobulinski. Here's Tony Bobulinski, the guy that revealed that he was Biden's, he was Biden's 10% partner. He was never brought into the FBI. He said, here I am. Then we find out that some of these guys had 17 audio recordings, 2 of them with Biden on them. Let me tell you something. There is a whole lot of leaks in this ship. What I've been told is there's enough out there to sink Biden's presidency, but they don't want to sink him. You get this? Because he's cooked for the next round. He will not be the nominee. They want Gavin Newsom, but they're afraid if Biden goes out now, Harris will go in as president, and they can't pull her out as a candidate, and they don't think she can win. So they're trying to prop him up like El Cid, like, Charlton Heston, dead in the saddle, at least until they can get Gavin Newsom to run in primary Kamala Harris, because they want Gavin Newsom at the top of the ticket. That's what I was told. But it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense. I have heard quite a few varieties on that same factor. Let me go to Congresswoman Boebert. What do you think, Congresswoman? This sound accurate to you?
Yes, there's so much that is going on right now that they want to cover up. I'm sure Biden wants us to stop looking at the past and get back to the future. But this is where we are right now. We are just uncovering all of this information. I was in a skiff reading unclassified documents, the FD 1023s. And, this is something that needs to be released to the American people. And I'm going into a skiff again on Thursday for another unclassified matter to meet with Secret Service agents about cocaine being found at the White House. This is twice now that this administration is putting us into skiffs, into secured rooms to be briefed on matters that are not classified. And so they're doing everything that they can to protect Joe Biden. They certainly don't want my articles of impeachment that I sent to the Homeland Security Committee to come up and get a vote, because Kamala Harris is great insurance policy for Joe Biden. And certainly they don't want her in office. They don't want her in as vice president even. They'll send her somewhere and, she can tell kids about the space and moon and cackle with them. But I do believe that they would love to prop somebody like Gavin Newsom up. But either way, I am confident that President Trump is going to come in and win that general election in 2024. This is someone who has experience, who has a proven track record, and also President Trump is not going to be worried about his second term in office. Anyone else that would be going into that office, any other Republican, they would be more worried about their next election, their re-election, than these first 4 years that they were serving. So I am very confident that President Trump will win that, and we won't have to worry about Biden, Kamala, or Gavin Newsom.
Amen. I'll agree with that and pray and agree, and everybody in this room will agree with that. Let me ask you a question, Congresswoman. When you announced the articles for impeachment, it was staggering what we saw from your side of the aisle, the pushback you received, not wanting you to file those articles. Why the pushback? What was the big deal?
Well, you see, members of Congress have a hard time taking votes here in Washington, D.C. I think most members of Congress find ways to get out of taking votes and actually casting their vote. And that's what we're hired to do, to represent our constituents back home and take even the tough votes. But there was certainly a lot of pushback. Look, I went to committee chairmen and leadership. I had inquired about committees actually bringing up an impeachment inquiry and doing the work, having the due process, laying out the case, having the vote in committee, and then being sent to the House floor. And it wasn't happening. And I said, enough is enough. We have millions of illegal aliens coming into our country. We have hundreds of thousands of children who have come over unaccompanied, 85,000 children who have gone missing, the sex trafficking that is taking place. And I said, enough is enough. If we are not going to have due process and send this through committee, then we will have a straight up and down vote on the House floor. Yes or no? Are you going to impeach Joe Biden? Now, when I forced that vote, suddenly committee chairmen and leadership were more obliged to actually go through the process and begin that impeachment inquiry. So I am the first Republican to begin to force an impeachment inquiry in nearly 50 years in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, it was nauseating, astounding, and we were very proud of you for what you did, Congresswoman. Thank you for that. Let me change just topics a little bit because I've only got about 7 minutes. But before I do, I want to go back to Jesse Duplantis. Jesse, you got comments here on what you've heard so far?
Well, to me, all I hear is the word reset. We need a reset button in America. You know, we always talking about them and us. How come, I'd like somebody to answer this question for me, how come they can break the law, but when we try to do right, you're all breaking the law? And, you know, we just keep talking about like that, what that senator said about Jim Jordan and things of that nature. And all they're trying to do is get to the bottom of things. Now, you just have to go. There is power, and you got to get to that power to change the power that's in power. You see, and there's a way to do that, some kind of way. And you may have to go covert in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Because the propaganda is out there, completely out there. We need a total, complete reset. You see, everybody wants to go back to doing the same thing, but they'll just get in the streets and the kids are stealing up to $900 and they don't do nothing about it. Nobody cares about that. But if you're a conservative or if you're a Republican, you do that, they want to put you in jail. How come they want to put us in jail? We can't put them in jail. I think what we need to do is to go find the people that will stand behind not a conservative or not a Republican, but an American, and do what's right and hit that reset button and then get these things taken care of instead of just keep waiting until the statute of limitations runs out. And that's what they're doing. I mean, it's just common sense. But it's amazing to me how many people can go that way. Like the media, they won't do this. Well, the minute you start touching their freedom of the press, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's start touching the freedom of the press. They're touching us. Let's touch them. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I walk in love, but, you know, love in its purest form is discipline.
That's
and
right.
you got the
That's
guts
true.
to do these things. You know, and that's what I'm saying. But as long as you keep talking, pushing it off, it's always allegations and never any substance to it. And we're not going to give you these documents, and we're not going to do this. Wait a minute. We got to find some people that'll walk with us. And if that's the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, I'm not asking for a coup. What I'm saying is, I'm asking, why can't we have the same rights as all these other people? And all you got to do, if you want to shake up CNN, you want to shake up all the NBC and ABC, go touch their freedom of the press and see what will happen. And, you know, you can do that. I mean, and now they're going to get everybody mad as a hornet, but at least you open up a discussion to hit the reset button.
It's good. In fact, I want to let Congresswoman Boebert respond to that first.
Well, you know, there's not many of our freedoms that the federal government hasn't messed with so far, but they certainly did try to go after the freedom of the press during COVID. But unfortunately, it was the truth that was being suppressed and not the lies and the propaganda and the pandering and forcing American citizens to inject themselves and causing fear throughout our entire nation. So in that regard, certainly we have seen the freedom of press be infringed by by the federal government, even with the Hunter Biden laptop story being suppressed. This is something that we're addressing in the House Oversight Committee. But, you know, my number one job is to secure the rights of Americans and make sure that they remain free. That is exactly why I'm here. I love freedom, not because I'm a Republican, not because I'm a conservative. I love freedom because Jesus set me free, because I am a Christian. And so I truly know what it means to be free. And that's something that I'm here to preserve for generations to come. And I will fight each and every day to do that. But I think to Jesse's point, and a great man who I've had the pleasure of spending some time with in my district in Colorado, but to Jesse's point, it's the American people that can start touching that freedom of press. It's the American people who could say, I am not listening to you anymore. I'm not turning your channel on. I'm not reading your paper. I'm not subscribing to your subscription. And that is how they will be the most impacted, is when it starts hitting their wallets.
That's so true. Let me say this, coming up July 30th, Sunday afternoon, you want to be a part right here in Fort Worth as we begin we're the opening act, if you want to put it that way, the Truth and Freedom Tour, FlashPoint Live right here in Fort Worth. I'll be talking with Mike Lindell, talking to him about the election. John Graves will talk, and then we'll kick it off that evening with Hank Kuhneman, Mike Lindell, Tony Suarez, Mark Burns, Lance Wallnau, Abby Johnson, Dutch Sheets, Moore, and Danny Goki will kick it all off with some great music. You will not want to miss that.